Welcome to All-in-One, One and All. Man, I've been having such a great time, and thank you for chiming in. If this is your first time, welcome to All-in-One, One and All channel. If you're coming back for another time or many times over, well, I really appreciate you so much. Thank you those who have subscribed to this channel, and those who are taking in these teachings and continuing to expand to release more of our true nature. One of the things that we're focusing on here on this channel is to help us to cultivate and realize our inner peace, our joy, abundance. And today we're going to talk about greatness, and how to actually liberate that. Associated with that, though, is removing some of the blockades that are hindering and obstructing the greatness that's within our being from expressing itself and revealing itself as our life. And when I speak about greatness, I'm not speaking about the world's measure of greatness, because oftentimes the world tends to look at greatness by comparison. So they choose to look at greatness as one versus another, as opposed to the greatness that's inherent in each and every one of us. So each of us listening to me, each of us viewing me, your greatness is the same as mine. There's no difference between the two. It's just the expression of it that may differ. And we oftentimes compare the expression as opposed to look at the fact that the greatness in us is inherent. It's already there. And what you and I need to do is to start to cultivate and literally fan the flame of it for it to be expressed in different areas of our lives. So we're going to, over the next few series that we're going to cover, we're going to look at fear. And the reason for looking at fear is because fear is one of the things that literally inhibits and blocks the expression of the greatness that we are. And you've seen probably the topic, is it possible to be free from fear? Can we be free from fear? And I will categorically say at this stage in my unfolding of my own being, yes, we can. Yes, there are some steps that we'll have to go through and grow through to come to that point of recognizing that, yes, we can be free of fear. Now, we've heard the statement, perfect love cast out all fear. All right, so there's a way for fear to be cast out, but your love has to be first perfected. And that's where the work that we're doing here on this planet, that's the walk that we're doing, is really about perfecting our loving. And through becoming perfected in our loving, then the sense of fear disappears and disintegrates. I'll share with you one experience that I had quite recently. We were driving on a highway here in Nigeria. And in the night, and it was late in the night. It was late in the night, maybe after 11 o'clock, and then there was a roadblock, and all the cars were lined up. Now, what happens generally when there's a roadblock, then thugs come out of the dark and they try to rob you. So we were in the car. There were my son Abraham was in the back, and two of my friends Chidi and Ijoma, they were in the passenger seat. I was driving the vehicle at the time. It was my friend Chidi's vehicle, business partner and friend. And we're driving the car, and I was using the phone while we're stuck in traffic, not realizing that I should not be using the phone in the dark because people would be tempted to come and rob the phone. So I was there using the phone, and then smash, right? The passenger window broke, right? And then the gentleman now was asking for the phone. Now, when the passenger window broke, I didn't shudder. I didn't panic, I didn't react like, no fear came over me. I was totally at calm, and I was even praying for him. I was looking into his eyes, and I was praying for him in that moment, and then Chidi and Ijoma, they were like, they couldn't believe that I didn't react, right, to the circumstance. Because a situation like that, he was threatening, he was saying he was going to kill me if I didn't give him the phone. The phone dropped between the chair, and then Chidi eventually gave him her phone, and he left, not too long after that. But there was no fear. My heart wasn't racing, and why is it that I had that experience? Why is it that I experienced it that way? If I go back 5, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, that would not have been my response. I would have been panicking. My heart would have been racing, and I would have been thinking about it for days and what could have happened and what it all meant, and all the various thoughts that are associated with that. So fear is something that you can actually divest yourself of, and regardless of what comes your way, you won't feel threatened. There's a statement in this book called A Course in Miracles that says nothing real can be threatened. Anything that can be threatened is unreal. Now, there's a time in your own experience, right? You know, people are at different parts of this, but there are basically 4 stages that we will mature through. You know, almost like matriculating through stages in school. And the first stage is going to be what we call maybe the victim stage. You know, a stage where we see ourselves as victim to circumstances and situations. We feel like something's being done to us. You know, we feel very small, we feel very limited. And then that's the first stage of most people who live on the planet. They're living in that stage. They're living in that feeling of being a victim to circumstance, situation, and places. Then the second stage that we'll mature through is when now we feel like we're more in control of the dynamics. You know, we actually understand how to manifest things. We become somewhat of a manipulator of situations, circumstances to try to fit them to our liking. You know, we become very goal-oriented and we're always seeking to accomplish higher and higher levels. That's the second stage that we matriculate through. And then the third stage that we mature into is a state now when we are more open. We are actually allowing, you know, the presence of the greatness that's within our being to start to unfold and flow into life. And we feel like there's a presence that's working through us. So we literally feel like there's a presence of, you know, around us. It sustains us, it supports us, it lives through us, and it works through us, and it's working along with us. And then that's the third stage we matriculate through. And then the fourth stage is where now we feel one with that presence. We don't feel a sense of separation. We feel really unified consciously with the presence. And then there's really nothing outside of that that would hinder or obstruct or delay the manifestation of what the presence is seeking to do by way of you. Now, those are stages, and there are things that we need to do to grow and mature through these stages. So most of us are at the victim stage in the beginning, you know, in different ways. You know, victim, the acronym that I've seen for that word, you know, is something that came through me, is victor, inhibiting, cultivating their inherent magnificence. So a victim is simply a victorious being on the inside. So the victim is already victorious. It's just that they're not aware of their magnificence. They're not aware of what's really deep within them. They have a narrow sense of an awareness of who and what they really are. So they're living a life as if something is happening to them. You know what? You know, when the car window broke, I could die, because we've now identified ourselves with the body. So the body becomes your identity. If the body is your identity, then if something happens to the body, it means something happened to you. Right? You know, if the body goes through a problem, you know, or a relationship that you have, biologically speaking, somebody, you know, is dealing with something, or the community that we're living in physically went through an earthquake or something of a traumatic. When we're identified with something tangible and physical, what happens is that we feel victimized. Right? So in the beginning of divesting ourselves from fear, there's some walking through this, letting go of these physical things that will have to happen. And it doesn't just happen just because we're speaking about it. It happens through proper spiritual practice. You know, as I've been doing these talks over time, you know, you've heard me talk about meditation, affirmative prayer, proper spiritual study, high-minded conversation, life visioning, you know, selfless service. You know, you hear me talk about fellowship. You'll hear me talk more and more about these practices that we'll need to do. Maintaining and sustaining a sense of gratitude, an inner sense of gratitude for life. You know, so we'll mature through these stages. And just based on my experience and the teachers that I've had the privilege of learning from, you know, people like Deepak Chopra, Michael Beckwith, you know, my spiritual mentor, Reverend Arlene Hilton, you know, I've garnered so much from them, and I'm seeking to pass this on to those who will be tuning into this avenue to get this information. So the first thing that we're going to need to work through is letting go of feeling like a victim. We have to surrender our victim card. We have to give it in, right? You hand it back. You're no longer a victim. And it's not just as easy as me saying that, because, you know, the thoughts that pass through our awareness that are associated with experiences and the situations that we find ourselves in will lead us to feeling somewhat victimized from time to time, because the thought has an emotion linked to it. So when the thought comes in our awareness about a situation, the emotion is already tied to the thought. So as a result, we feel the literal emotion associated with feeling like a victim, even though we're not. So there's a process of learning, one, how to think. You know, not what to think, but how thinking works. You know, I covered that in one of the first teachings I did, and hopefully you'll go back to that. I think, can we be happy no matter what? I think thinking was either first or second, I don't remember, but go and check it up. But it's very important to understand how thinking works, because when you don't understand how thinking works, you get trapped by it. And then the thoughts that we have in our mind determine our perception. Our perception determines our experience. If your perception comes from the standpoint of something narrow, something small, a feeling of being separate from the presence, once you're coming from that standpoint, you're automatically going to have fear birth itself from that. We have heard fear, right? False evidence appearing real. Some acronyms: face everything and rise. Another acronym is face everything and run. Right? So fear has different ways of looking at it. Ultimately, all fear is really an imagination, right? It's really an illusion, and it's an imagination of what could happen. Taking us down the pathway of understanding fear a little bit more. Let's say, a car is coming your way, right? You're standing in the middle of the road, or you're crossing the road. So you're crossing the road and a car is coming your way. Now the car hasn't hit you, but the car is coming in your direction. And the thought could come up, man, if that car hits me, I'm in trouble, meaning physically your body would die. So the thought about what could happen is what causes that emotion of what the fear, not the car hitting you, right? Because the car hasn't hit you yet. So the car coming in your direction is only the thought about what could happen that causes the feeling of, or the emotion of fear. So fear is always going to be based on a future outcome. It's something that's possible in the future as opposed to what's happening now. So as a result of that, when you understand this and you understand how that works, what you're doing is really projecting something in the future as opposed to being present. Over time, we'll talk about practices that will bring us our attention and focus it more on being present rather than our attention running away into the future, running away into the past, and maybe fantasizing about what could happen and what could not happen, or what should happen and what should not happen. And as we ease our way back from thinking in these ways, we will liberate our inner sense of peace and joy. But also what starts to happen is your innate greatness. You see, each of us here, we have greatness inside. That greatness means you can be better than yesterday. And if you're going to do any comparison, it should be, am I better than yesterday? We should always seek to go above yesterday. All right? Any goal that we accomplished before, we should always seek to go higher. And that should be a perpetual way of being. In fact, that's one of the laws of prosperity, perpetual goal accomplishment. So we need to actually just know this, recognize this, that the greatness is beckoning us to clear things out of the way, clear the clutter out of the way, so that the greatness that's already inherent within your being can roll forward. Remember that word victim, victor, right? Inhibiting, meaning that using fear of circumstance, situation to block cultivating their inherent, meaning that it's already there, magnificence. You already have a magnificent being. You're created in the image and likeness of the presence of God. Now, we've heard this, but then coming to know that, we have to matriculate through giving up our victim card. No more telling ourselves victim stories about what happened and what didn't happen and what could happen and what should happen, should not happen. We mature out of the storytelling about circumstance, people, situation, and things. And when you mature out of that, the next stage from that now is where you feel somewhat in control. You have the illusion of control of your circumstance and situation. You could set goals, you could work hard to them, accomplish them. Your life starts to feel a little bit better. But that's only the second stage, and that still has fear associated with it. Because when you're going after goals and you become so goal-oriented and you're so focused on the outcome of the goal, you end up having fear of it not happening. So there's always the fear of loss associated with goal getting. So if you focus on goal getting as opposed to focus on goal expression, which means now you're not trying to get something, you're trying to release something, you're trying to allow the greatness within you to come forth. That's the third stage. When you now start to move into that dynamic where you're allowing, you're letting, you're releasing. And then the fourth stage, of course, we'll go into that some more. So today, in terms of just summarizing this discussion just briefly, in helping us to start to move away from the idea that fear is something that we have to live with. It can be a passenger, just to give you some guidance, but it definitely should not be the lead. A lot of people put their faith in fear. You know, they have trust in fear. Think about that. Instead of trusting faith and trusting God, people trust fear because they trust their fears. You know, what if this doesn't happen? What if that doesn't happen? You know, so that kind of thing. What if that happens? So there's a trust in fear as opposed to trusting faith and trusting the presence. But that happens because when our identity is small, right? When our identity is a body, when our identity is based on a geographical location, when our identity is based on our familial fantasies about who we think we are, when our identity is that small, fear is built into it automatically because the identity is false. It's not true. No, the true identity, which we are spiritual, eternal beings, even though you may know it theoretically, even though you may believe it with faith, is not enough to have a belief about it. The only way to be free of the fear is to know the truth about ourselves. And knowing the truth about ourselves, we'll have to go through those 4 stages. And we're going to talk more about practices. I think the next talk, I'll get into that some bit, you know, because this is just stuff that's unfolding from me. I'm not trying to put something together. I'm just allowing my experience and the realization of my enlightened nature, which is yours too, because I'm saying your nature is also enlightened, right? I don't have anything that you don't have. So what I'm seeking to share with us is an experience of practices that I've tested for myself. There are many other beings who have done this successfully, and you can actually go through tenderly over time a process that will allow you to literally liberate the inherent magnificence and beauty, the resourcefulness, the creativity. There's so much inside of us, you know, like God is literally like begging you and I to set God free so God can be you and live through you and expand and express and do some magnificent things through your life experience. And that's what's going to happen for those who are going to follow these practices, man. I'm really fired up and excited about what we're doing. This for me is the best thing I've ever done. I've done some cool things, but this particular phase of really sharing these ideas and sharing the principles and helping more people to realize their inherent magnificence and their greatness, their beauty, you know, their resourcefulness, their innovativeness, you know, their creativity, you know, allowing that uniqueness of each and every one of us to come forth and playing a part in that. To me, that's a really wonderful vocation. All right, so I'm really grateful for you chiming in and tuning in. The next topic, we're going to get into how to really, you know, divest ourselves a little bit more of fear, you know, understanding it some more in terms of how it's structured, what are the things that we have done with our identity, and how we can actually start to shake those things loose from us so that we can actually go into higher dimensions of living. All right, guys, so it's been my pleasure and privilege speaking to you today, and I will see you on the next talk that's coming up in a week from now. God bless each and every one of you. We'll see you at the top of life. You deserve to be there. Bye for now. For those of us who enjoyed this video, even if you didn't fully enjoy it, but leave your comments, all right? You know, please share it with friends, family, you know, individuals that you know, you'd like to actually learn about what we're talking about. And please subscribe to this channel as well. You know, our goal is to really help more of us as human beings on this planet rise and shine and reveal more of our inner peace, joy, and reveal more abundance. All right. So thank you for your comments. I'm looking forward to reading them. I'll seek to respond to them. I'm having a great time. I hope that you are. God bless you all.